Okay, so welcome back to another no bullshit review. And on this one, we need to talk about the Spring 636 from Arturia. For the ones that don't know what a spring reverb is, well, it's not a reverb. So yeah, a reverb effect is, it's a sound very specific, like an environment like a room or hall or stadium. So a spring reverb only creates a spring-like sound that after a series of stages, it will provide, some depth to the sound, but it's an illusion of reverb. It's not a real space like a room or a stadium. So this was invented a million years ago. And, the sound will go through a spring or several springs, depends on the system. And the springs will be captured by something and then will be converted, the vibrations of the spring will be converted to an electrical signal. And this is how, you get this depth in sound on this spring reverb sound. Now, the most famous spring sounds comes from guitar amplifiers. So if you say spring reverb, maybe you will think of a Fender amp. That's, the most famous take on a spring reverb. Now, of course, in the attempt of simulating a real sound reverb, they created a new sound because this sounds nothing like a real space. It sounds like its own thing, a spring reverb. And if you think about that, maybe if I put an example like a wah-wah pedal, the Jimi Hendrix wah-wah pedal, well, that was meant to be a trumpet. And it sounds nothing like a trumpet, but they realized that it's its own thing, and they adopted the sound of wah-wah as a different thing. Well, this is the same idea. A spring reverb sounds nothing like a real reverb, but it sounds like its own thing. It has an identity. So it cannot be confused by anything else. You cannot confuse a spring reverb with a room reverb, right? That's why it's so cool and it's so important because it sounds like its own thing. So again, the most famous reverbs come from amps, but Arturia is not a guitar-based company. So they've made a model. They model the plugin of an amp called Grampian 636. That's why that right there at the bottom, it says reverberation unit type right here at the bottom, Grumpy 636. The original unit calls Grampian 636. Okay, so now that you know what a spring reverb is, you can judge this accordingly. So this plugin has pretty much three stages. The preamp, so the before going to the reverb, before getting this spring reverb sound, the sound will come in and it will hit the preamplified stage. So it needs to preamplify the sound. Now, of course, since this unit, it's old as the Pope, preamps back in the day were not super clean like the preamps we have today. So what you will get right from the start without reverb, you get saturation because it's hitting the preamp and you get a nice, colored saturation. So I'm going to go right here and first let me turn this off and let me show you the track that's behind. This is a track, synthwave track, of course. Nice dumb track. We're going to talk about this much later. So I'm going to go to the ARP. This is the ARP. Okay, so I'm going to be working with this one. Now, the plugin is bypassed. I'm going to turn it on. And right from the start, if I double click, notice that this is the default position, minus 1490 Vs. And right here in the right side, you get a blend for the preamp or the reverb. So you have two stages. You can either use just the preamp or just the reverb. But the fact that this is on, and it means that you can disable the reverb, it means that it will go always to the preamp. This is the way it works. So by default, you get some nice saturation. You cannot avoid this or you cannot disable this. So if I go and play this sound, notice that there's a very small saturation. And as I notice that it will give you the overload right here, how much saturation you're doing, which is not a lot. And as you, of course, go down on the input, you don't get a lot of sound. So you need to provide some input to get something. And as you do more, you get saturation. And it's a nice saturation, I like it. Now you have two types of saturation. This one, which is, a little bit, maximum distortion. It says select the original mic, preamp gain right here at the bottom for maximum distortion. So this is, again, where you get the most cranky one. And the other one, if you click on the other one, this one, notice that they are different. Let me go right here. Notice that they are different. So you get just two different types of saturation. Now, as you can notice, of course, the volume when you do saturation goes crazy, goes up in volume. So what you can do right here, you can manually adjust the output as you provide more input. Or what you can do is you can click this button and it will do the auto compensation for you. So even though you are doing a lot of saturation, the volume stays in check. And this will be, of course, handled for you, which is cool. Of course, I'm doing too much, but it's a very nice thing to have, because maybe you don't care about the reverb. You just want to get some nice saturation, and this will give you that saturation. So of course, then you have the other stage, which is going to be the reverb stage. And first is the saturation. And one thing again, you can get reverb, and you can get the preamp sound without the reverb, but you cannot get the reverb without the preamp. The saturation will always be there. You just need to lower the volume to to avoid having too much distortion, and then just level up the volume right here. But right from the start, if you go more to the reverb side, notice that you are going to get more reverb. And notice it's a little bit crazy. It goes crazy. Super nice. Now, of course, this is the blend control. So you can go not too crazy on the reverb. And you get it. Of course, it's very subtle. Now, if you want to go crazy, you go reverb all the way. This is the mix control, of course. And you just get the reverb. That's it. All right. Now, of course, this is going pretty fast. So, and we have a delay before that. So, what you will need to do now is to make sure that the decay is on the right position. So right now it's super long. That's why we get this chaos. But if we go to a shorter decay, it's just a bit better. It really changes the sound. Now, of course, you can make it mono right here. You go from stereo to mono. So now the reverb is going to be mono, which is something nice that you can do this, because sometimes you will need this spring of reverb in mono. Maybe, the stereo is just too much. Just maybe add a little bit of depth with mono, which is something that no one does. It's very uncommon on modern productions to use a mono reverb, and mono reverbs are really important. Imagine if everything is a stereo, everything will occupy, a lot of space. So it gets messy. So the ability we can do this it's just very cool. So that's it. That's the whole unit. You can add distortion, use more reverb, less reverb, short decay, long decay, and all the in-betweens, of course. Now, of course, this is not a lot, right? For a spring reverb or just any reverb. It's not a lot, but it's fine. It's what you get, and that's it. But if you go to the advanced section, you're going to get more options. And they're pretty cool. And they're some options that we really need, or we can find in modern delays, like the pre-delay, right? So this one, of course, the pre-delay is going to be how long the signal, the reverb is going to wait to, to play. So if I do 250, I'm going to play. The reverb is starting 250 milliseconds after the incoming signal. So you're delaying maybe too much. So that's why you're getting this sound is pretty separated. But you can go into small details and add something, do maybe 20 milliseconds, something that makes sense. All right. So another thing that you get is the pre-filter. And then you have the post equalizer. So these are different. So of course, the incoming signal is, just coming to the unit, just entering to the unit. Then you get the reverb sound, and then the sound goes out with the original signal and the reverb signal. The thing is that sometimes you need to filter the sound that comes into the unit, because of course, if you have maybe a lot of high frequencies, those high frequencies will be incremented by the reverb, and they will get just a bit annoying. So what you can do, and I'm gonna go right here to the reverb. I'm gonna do the playing, and you can add you can filter the low pass, or you can do, let me just check it right here. You can select low pass, high pass, or band pass. And this is what it does, is going to chop the frequencies that you don't like. Notice I'm chopping. Let me do something a bit more aggressive, something a bit more, obvious. And I'm gonna go and activate. So there's nothing. I'm gonna go there. And notice that we are just chopping the high frequencies. Now, if I go to the preamp signal stays the same. So this one will do a pre-filtering of the original sound before going to the reverb. That's why the reverb has no high frequencies, because the sound that it goes to the reverb before it comes out has no high frequencies. And this is different from the post equalizer. The equalizer will equalize the sound after it's being processed by the reverb, which is not the same thing. So if I go and disable this one and I do this one, I'm gonna do the play. Of course, remember this one is disabled. And I'm gonna go and start, chopping the high frequencies. Notice we are just chopping the high frequencies. Now the preamp stays the same. But now the reverb, the high frequencies, we are chopping after the reverb. So we are kind of equalizing the reverb sound. And on this one, we equalize the sound that goes before the reverb, right? Hopefully you understand the difference, because they are different. And right here, you can chop the high frequencies, you can chop the low frequencies. You can even add more gain, so you can add a boost maybe on the, let's say that you want more presence. You go to the 3000 hertz, and you add more presence. And of course, then you create a nice blend. It makes a difference. Notice that the sound of the reverb really sticks out. So maybe what you want to do when you have a track, or you want to add this reverb, you want to add a bit more presence to the reverb, you want more of that reverb sound, well then maybe go into 3 or 4K and add a little bit of boost on that section, will make the reverb stands out. And that's it. That's pretty much the whole thing. Now you get the tank, and this is something that they've added because this reverb, it's too simple. The plugin is too simple. So Arturia always needs to add something to the plugin, just to make it a bit more, marketable, to sell it a little bit better. So of course, each reverb has its own tank, and it has one tank, right? Because it does it creates one spring reverb. You cannot do more, right? So this one gives you different tanks, so you get different sounds. So the first one in the default, and I'm gonna go all the way to the reverb. Everything is disabled. I'm not doing a lot of this. I'm gonna go and select maybe a medium decay, and I'm gonna play, but only listen to the reverb. So the tank will give you a different spring sound. Notice this one is a bit more kind of a noisy. This one has a lot of low frequencies. This one has more high frequencies, got kind of a middle. This one sounds a little bit darker. And then of course it says space echo. And this one is the tank of the space echo. Another, delay unit with a spring reverb built inside. So you get different sounds. Right, so let's listen to the other ones. very darker, super dark. All right, so they're very different. Notice that these ones, if you go from the upper part ones, they are more brighter. They're super bright. Maybe not this one, but and this one are just a little bit darker, which is nice. Sometimes you just want to add a little bit of depth with the spring reverb or with any reverb, and you don't want the reverb in between, just making a lot of noise. So maybe using the tanks right here, which are darker, will, just help the track. Okay, so let me unsolo this and try to find, I'm going to use the default ones, and I'm going to go and play the whole track and try to, get a sound out of this. I'm going to make it stereo. So we make it right here, stereo. I'm going to play it. And of course, the reverb is too much. Maybe a little bit of input. Maybe too much. Like it. Maybe we can go right here and do the trick that we did before. Add a little bit of boost right there. And chop a little bit of the high frequencies. Sticks out, right? All right, let's see what happens. Nice, I like it. All right. All right, so that's it. This is the whole the whole unit. It's not a lot of plugging. I mean, you don't get a million things and a million controls like you would get on a Valhalla plugin type of delay of a reverb, but it's pretty cool. It has its own identity, and you know what? We don't have a lot of spring reverbs out there. They're not. They're just, we don't have a lot. So the fact that we have now one that it has a nice saturation, a nice effect. It's really cool. I really like this, this plugin. So let me give you my conclusion. So if I go to right here to the web page, it's $99, and you know what my opinion is about Arturia. I don't like them as a corporation or just a company. I do like the plugins. I don't like them. 99, it's too much for this plugin, I believe, right? But it's a pretty unique plugin because you don't have a lot of spring reverbs. So I would guess in this case, since we don't have a lot of them, 99 it's okay because you cannot get it anywhere else. And you do have some controls. You have several tanks, and you have a nice input saturation. So 99 for this, I believe it's okay. Now, of course, my opinion with Arturia, it's always get it in a bundle. Because even though it's a cool plugin, 99 is still too much, just a bit pricey for me. All right, so that's it. That's my opinion. It's a good, very usable plugin, but it's not for everything because you cannot really use a spring reverb on everything. It's just for some particular instruments or very special occasions. But this is, of course, my opinion. The decision at the end is completely up to you. All right, so see you on the next one.